story of a modern-day footballer who became Maradona in the eyes of the city of Naples. And although his story is yet to be fully written, you must admit that Victor Osimhen's path to football greatness has been eerily similar to the Naples deity. Both grew up in destitute poverty and used football to get their families out of the slums. Both had to suffer through injuries and multiple clubs giving up on them, having many write them off as another failed wonderkind. And both would eventually find a home in Napoli, where they would lead the same city to unforeseen glory, and in the process become a cult hero and a legend for the working class people of Naples. This is the story of Victor Osimhen, a man that gave to Naples something they hadn't seen since 30 years ago when Maradona led them to their second only Scudetto. But let's take you back to the beginning. Victor's path to football greatness was as far from easy as you could possibly imagine. Victor James Osimhen was born on December 29, 1998 in Lagos, Nigeria. His surname, Osimhen, translates to God is good, an adage that would be tested many times in his young life. The last of 6 children, he grew up in a literal dump. This is not a joke or a jab. Lagos, while being one of the economic centers for Nigeria, is also home to one of the largest dump sites in all of Africa, and Victor grew up next to it. In fact, as a child, he would dig through that dump site to find football boots to play in. In an interview, he described digging through the landfill with his friends and often playing in mismatched boots that his big sister would patch up for him. And from these context clues, you could probably gather that he grew up incredibly poor. As he described it, they were the poorest family in the neighborhood, next to a dump. Everyone in their family had to work out of necessity from a young age, just to put food on the table. As a toddler, he would be strapped to the back of his mother as she walked through the crowded traffic jams of Lagos, selling bottled water in the searing hot sun. His parents had actually moved to Lagos right before his birth, in hopes of finding more economic opportunity in the financial hub. But Lagos being a sprawling metropolis of 21 million people, many had the same idea. Unfortunately, there was only so much opportunity. They often struggled to make ends meet. And then, tragedy struck, as Victor's mother would pass away when he was still just a toddler. Victor said in an interview that he was so young he couldn't even remember the year that it happened. And to make matters worse, a few months later, his father would lose his job. Victor's older brother, Andrew, would actually quit schooling to take up selling newspapers. And when Victor became old enough, he would take up the job of his late mother, selling bottled water on the hot roads of Lagos. He recalls from his childhood that all his brothers and sisters would work every day and come home to pool their money together. Then their big sister would go buy and make the food for everyone. But not everything was bad. Victor's older brother Andrew became a neighborhood football star, and Victor got his love for the sport by watching his older brother play. They were both naturally huge fans of the Nigerian national team, the Super Eagles. They were also huge fans of Chelsea at the time, watching whenever they could, and they grew up idolizing Chelsea legend and the man who literally stopped the civil war in Africa, Didier Drogba. But that's a story for another day. Back to Victor. When young Osimhen started to play himself, his older brother immediately noticed that he was way more talented than he was. And Andrew gave up playing himself to go full-time into selling newspapers to support his little brother. He dreamed that one day Victor could become a star, and maybe even play for the country Nigeria. And his gamble paid off, as local scouts saw the same thing that he did. There was something special about Victor. They invited him to play for the Ultimate Strikers Academy in Lagos, where he aced his first trial. In fact, his performances for the academy were so impressive that he got a call-up for the under-17 national team, known as the Super Eaglets. And this is where Victor Osimhen would get his big break. Because not only was Victor instrumental in helping them qualify for the under-17 World Cup in Chile, he was an absolute celestial at that tournament. He was the best player of the tournament, bagging 10 goals, earning himself Golden Boot honors as well as the silver ball of the tournament. And all the while, leading Nigeria to their 5th under-17 World Cup title, the most by any country in history. After such a sensational under-17 World Cup, he had all the big teams in Europe salivating over him. Arsenal, Man City, and Tottenham were all massively intrigued by the young Super Eagle. But Victor, perhaps wisely, rejected the Premier League, instead opting to take his talents to Germany, as Bundesliga side Wolfsburg offered him the most money. A sound decision at the time, as he was able to finally financially secure stability for his family. And then also go into the Bundesliga, a league renowned for nurturing and developing young players, as opposed to the Premier League, which is notorious for churning up and spitting out young starlets faster than Leonardo DiCaprio. Side note, and this is only a rumor, apparently Leo DiCaprio only fucks while listening to music with headphones on while vaping. What a fucking Chad. I'm sorry. Back to Osimhen again. And so, the young Nigerian was signed a 3-year contract in 2017. He was on his way to the Bundesliga. Through all the hard times, the tragedy, the sacrifices his family had made, he had finally made good. He had won a World Cup for his country, although it's an under-17 World Cup, but still, he was named AFCON Young Player of the Year, and now he had signed his first professional contract as a footballer and lifted his family out of poverty. But little did he know that his journey to Germany would quickly become a nightmare. Expectations were high at a Wolfsburg club that finished 8th in the Bundesliga the season before, but a dreadful start to the season would see them quickly slide into a relegation battle for the rest of the year. And it got bad. So bad that they shit-canned their manager only 9 matches in. And then the manager who came after him only lasted till February. Yeah, during Osimhen's first year at Wolfsburg, he had 3 different managers. Not good. And before he knew it, everyone that was excited to bring him into the club was out the door. And you don't need to be an expert at footy to realize that a relegation battle and a rotating door at manager is not a good place for an 18-year-old to try to be developing himself into a star. In an interview, he said about his time in Germany, "When I arrived at Wolfsburg, everything was different compared to what I was used to. The food, the climate, the language, the way people treated me. I thought, will I get through this? But if I had stayed in Nigeria, I wouldn't have been given the chance like the one they gave me in Germany. It was my first time in Europe. I was only 18, but I didn't have time to adapt." And beyond the cultural and language barriers and all the coaching fiasco, simply put, Victor was not yet physically ready for the rigors of professional football. He kept on getting small, nagging injuries. Shoulder, knee, and calf issues would sideline him from training consistently. And then he suffered a serious shoulder injury that would end his first season prematurely. And to make matters worse, when given the go-ahead to recover in Nigeria, he caught a serious case of COVID. And when he was healthy enough to return to Wolfsburg, he was ineffectual. Over his 1.5 years in Germany, injuries, sickness, and inconsistency sapped him of all of his confidence. He would make only 16 appearances for the club, scoring and assisting 0 goals. If he had signed for a Premier League team, all the memes would have been he was Agent 007, times 2, plus 2. Simply put, Germany had become a horror show for the young Nigerian, and his dreadful run of form would cause even further heartbreak, as he wasn't even considered for the Nigerian team at the 2018 World Cup. After leading the under-17 national team to World Cup glory, he couldn't even get a sniff at the varsity team. That's how much of a fall-off people thought he had. And this would usually be enough to derail most young footballers' careers. And Wolfsburg couldn't move on from the young Nigerian fast enough, and the feelings were probably mutual. He needed a change of scenery, and he would look for it in Belgium, going on trial at a club that I've never heard of, so I'm going to butcher this, Zate Welgum, and Club Brugge, who were the reigning champions. But right before he went on these trials, as if his luck couldn't get any worse, Osimhen would catch a serious case of malaria that severely weakened him, to the point that he could barely train with these teams. One scout said that when they saw him during these trials, he was running around with a noticeable limp, and that led to both these clubs rejecting him alone. And this would be rock bottom for Victor. From Africa's biggest starlet to becoming the biggest flop wonderkind in Europe in under 2 years, to now not even being able to make it on a loan spell in the Belgium league. This would be enough to destroy the confidence of anyone, especially a young professional footballer. But finally, God remembered what Osimhen's name meant, and he blessed Victor with a lifeline, as Belgian club Charleroi gave the Nigerian one last chance. They gave it a gamble and took him on season loan. And finally, after Osimhen would get over his bout with malaria, got his body right and healthy, and fully recovered from all those nagging injuries, he pledged that he would set things right in Charleroi. And in his first appearance for the club, he would score his first professional goal ever, with a sensational backheel. Yes, this is the first goal this man ever scored as a pro. Needless to say, I think he got a little bit of his swagger back after that one, and from that point on, he would go on to make the Belgian league his bitch, scoring 20 goals in all competitions. The baby monster that everyone had seen at that under-17 tournament had finally emerged. After such a cracking season, Charleroi obviously activated the buyout clause, snatching him up for a mere $3.5 million. But they wouldn't retain his services for very long, as French side Lille came in with a €15 million offer to snatch up the Nigerian, as they needed a replacement for the departing Nicolas Pepe, who went to Arsenal that summer. Things were finally starting to turn around, and Victor was excited about going to the French league, specifically Lille. Upon his arrival, he told the club's official website, "Lille is a very good club, which has a quality project and high-class players, and especially these last years, great Nigerian players like Peter Odemwingie and Vincent Nyama have also played here." And unlike Wolfsburg, Osimhen hit the ground running at Lille. 10 days after his signing, he made his debut and scored a brace to announce himself to Ligue 1. He would go on to be named the French League's Player of the Month in September of 2019, having scored 4 goals and assisting 2 more in 5 matches. But an even more unbelievable stat than that on the season was that Victor had broken the speed barrier of 22 miles per hour 7 times over the course of the season, which is more times than Kylian Mbappe. And yes, while his top speed is not as fast as Mbappe, I mean, whose is? This dude, Victor Osimhen, is not too far behind, and he hit that top speed more often than Mbappe, and arguably more effective with it, as he would go on to score 18 goals in all competitions. And with those types of headlines, it was yet another one-and-done season for the Nigerian, as he would transfer to another club during the summer. For those not in the know, the French league has been renowned for many years as a treasure trove of football talent, and a little specifically, has grown a reputation for producing Europe's next elite attackers, the likes of Eden Hazard, Rafael Leao, Nicolas Pepe, and now Victor Osimhen would be the next young striker plucked from the French side, as Napoli would shatter the record for the most money ever paid for an African international at 80 million euros. Just insanity. Remember, he was worth 3.5 million in the Belgian league just 2 years prior. And to go from that to now becoming the most expensive African on the planet, well, let's just say Victor had come a long way from the landfills of Lagos. But sadly, his father would never see his son become the most expensive African player of all time, because he passed away during his season at Lille. And unfortunately, his run of bad luck would return during his first season at Napoli. In November, while playing in the Afghan Cup of Nations, Victor would suffer a shoulder dislocation that would keep him out till late January. He would return late in that season and was used only sparingly. And the poor injury luck would continue into his second season, as in, once again, in November, he would suffer a horrible eye socket fracture that would sideline him for 3 months. This would cause him to have to play with a face mask, which has become somewhat of a signature for him. In fact, black masks are actually sold outside Diego Maradona Stadium on match day, and even donned a couple of questionable birthday cakes. I can't tell if this is racist or not, but, you know, Italy gonna Italy. Now, despite the eye injury, he would actually play in a respectable 32 games, and actually ended up bagging 18 goals in all competitions. Which leads us to this current season. And you guys kind of know what happened this season. Victor Osimhen would become the best striker on the planet, not named Erling Haaland. Now, before we get into the season, I think it's important to get a holistic picture of Napoli leading into this year. Looking a couple seasons back, they had finished runners-up in 2018 and 19, and they got third place just the season prior. Definitely trending in the right direction, but financial troubles would go on to force the club in the summer to sell off 3 club legends: the defensive behemoth Koulibaly, and the attacking legends Dries Mertens and homegrown talent Lorenzo Insigne. These 3 were massively popular amongst the Napoli faithful, and equally unpopular was the decision to sell all 3 of them in the same summer. To say there was backlash was a little bit of an understatement, but little did the Napoli faithful know that this move would become a historic masterstroke. Now, at the time, no one could have known what was to come, but through the shrewd recruitment of their sporting director, Cristiano Giuntoli, over the course of that summer, he would bring in 2 replacements that would become plug-and-play legends for the club. He brought in the Korean center back, Kim Jae-min, and this Asian somehow seamlessly slotted in as the defensive stalwart for the departed Koulibaly. Strong frame, excellent in the air as well as interceptions, good football IQ, reads the game well, especially in a league that prides itself on its defense. Kim Jae-min fit into Napoli like kimchi over rice. But for all his defensive ability, it was actually his ability on the ball and his above-average passing that made him exceptional at Napoli, as they play a very high-possession style of football. The ability to build out of the back is key to the strategy that has dominated the Serie A this year. So with the spine of the team solidified for only 18 million, might I add, Giuntoli would go back and make maybe the single most bang-for-your-buck signing of that summer, when he picked up a little-known Georgian player by the name... oh god, I'm gonna fuck this up. Vicha Kvaratskhelia. Alright, I did the best that I could, but I'm gonna call him Vicha. Vicha was not highly known because he was playing in the Georgian league at the time, because his contract was suspended due to the outbreak of the Ukrainian war. But now, he's got announcers struggling to learn how to pronounce his name, because he has not just only taken the Serie A by storm, this little Georgian has become one of the best wingers in Europe. In fact, he's the first player ever in Italian football history to score 10 goals and provide 10 assists in his inaugural season in the league. Now, you'll be forgiven if you are not familiar with this man's game. So what is he good at? I think the easier thing to say is, what isn't he good at? The man has absolute searing pace, power, and technique in both feet. Excellent close control, agility, turn of pace, the slices, the chops, the tricks, the technical ability, all of it. used in symphonic ecstasy, produces a player that is unpredictable, dangerous, fearless as he drives past defenders. And remember, he's doing this in the Italian league that prides itself on its fullbacks, on its center backs, and he is just doing everyone. For my Americans, he looks like Kyrie Irving out there, just crossing people over left and right. Just watch a bit of his game. Here, I'm just gonna show a bit of it right now because it's that awesome. And you can clearly see there is a reason why Napoli fans have already crowned him the Georgian Maradona. And Vicha has created a dynamic partnership with Osimhen this season, playing the Robin to the masked Nigerian's Batman. So these two additions were obviously huge keys into Napoli's sensational season. But the third element was already on the roster. He'd just been kind of banged up for the first 2 years he was there. But Victor Osimhen finally put it all together. In 29 matches in the Serie A this season, Victor Osimhen has scored 23 goals and contributed 4 assists. And I realize I'm giving you a couple clues here and there about what makes Osimhen so great, but I haven't given you the full rundown. Obviously, you know this motherfucker's fast. He's nearly as fast as Mbappe. But as I said before, he might be actually more effective with his pace, as he is one of the best strikers in Europe. And not only playing on the shoulder of the last defender, but this man is rarely offside. He times his runs often to perfection. Now, one of his weaknesses is he's not the most technical dribbler, but he doesn't need that because he excels in off-the-ball movement. This is a very intelligent footballer, always looking to find the defender's blind spot and drive into space. And because of that, he doesn't need to be that technical of a dribbler, as he can just amplify his strengths to become one of the best direct strikers on the planet. And even though he only stands at 6 foot tall, this man is also one of the best aerial threats on the planet. His ups are insane. Look at this. He somehow gets his head over a keeper who's jumping up and using both of his hands to try to get to the ball. I don't even know how that's possible. My man spotted him a 2-foot reach, and he still got his head on it. His head game is worthy of OnlyFans, being one of the first players ever in Italian history to score 2 braces in a season only using his head. Oh yeah, and he's pretty good with his feet too. Inside the box, this man is just a natural-born poacher. And when getting even half a chance, he has proven himself to be one of the most clinical strikers in Europe. He's not a volume shooter. He's more of a Sergio Aguero type, where he picks his spots, and what he does, there's a high chance that it's finding its way into the back of the net. And with his big, strong frame, he can play well with his back to goal. He has a decent first touch and can provide excellent link-up play, which has been key to Napoli's heavy possession tactics. You combine all of that, and what you see, finally, fully there and healthy, is a modern-day number 9. Possibly the most well-rounded number 9 on the planet right now. And it was his goal versus Udinese that would go on to crown Napoli champions of Italy for the first time in 33 years. This is the first time a non-Northern Giant has won the Serie A title since Roma did it in 2001. And this all happened in early May. They ran away with the title this year with a staggering 16-point lead with 5 matches to play. I must remind you, this was not supposed to happen for Napoli. This would be like if Tottenham sold Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, replaced them with 2 nobodies who became superstars in their very first season, and then Richarlison became the second best striker in Europe. You would say that's insanity. Well, that's what fucking Napoli did this year. What was supposed to be a complete rebuild became one of the most unlikely Scudettos since Maradona won a Scudetto with Napoli for the first time in their history 34 years ago. And I could keep on waxing poetic about how fucking amazing this is, but a picture tells 1,000 words. Just look at this image of Osimhen being mobbed by a sea of the Napoli faithful. And you have to realize in this moment how insanely good you need to be to receive this much love as a black footballer in Italy. You know that he has become this generation's Maradona for the people of Naples. Osimhen's image will undoubtedly be painted on the murals that will adorn the walls of the southern Italian city for as long as it stands. And I'll be right there, alongside the city's patron saint, Diego Armando Maradona. Through all the hardships, the injuries, the sickness, the tragedies, he had overcome it all. Victor Osimhen had come from the literal landfills of Africa to become a legend in Italy and a demigod to the people of Naples. And all by the ripe age of 24. God is good. God is good indeed. And that is going to be my profile on Mr. Victor Osimhen. If you did enjoy, please go ahead, leave a like, help boost this shit in the algorithm. But before you guys go, I want to invite you all to be part of FIFA history. I'm not bullshitting you, and I'm not sponsored by these guys at all. A reviewer from Micronesia asked me to help raise money to help get their country into the official FIFA World Rankings. In order for them to qualify, they are holding a football tournament, but they need our help. They need funds to pay for the flights, as Micronesia is a series of islands, and the government isn't sponsoring shit. And if you buy one of these kits, and if they hold a tournament, and they get into the FIFA World Rankings, you can honestly say that you are a part of FIFA history. And here's the thing, they're not that far off. They need to make 15K. They're already at 11K. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. Thank you to all my patrons, keeping me alive and well, keeping these videos coming out quick. Thanks to the homie Bruno for editing this video. And yeah, until next time, guys, stay thick.